I'm Diane. 6 months ago, I was supposed to be walking down the aisle, wearing my grandmother's vintage wedding dress, about to marry the man I'd loved for 3 years. But instead, I found myself standing in the ruins of my once happy future, watching as the woman who was supposed to become my mother-in-law destroyed the one thing that held a lifetime of memories. I remember that night as if it were yesterday. I stepped into my bedroom, and there it was, the shredded silk of my grandmother's dress, scattered across the floor like white confetti from hell. Each piece was a reminder of the history and love that had been sewn into the fabric, now destroyed by deliberate, vicious cuts. The intricate beadwork that my great-grandmother had sewn by hand in 1952 was scattered like broken promises across the hardwood. Standing in my doorway, scissors still gleaming in her perfectly manicured hands, was Eleanor Thompson, my future mother-in-law. Her perfectly coiffed platinum hair hadn't moved despite the violence she'd just committed. Her diamond necklace sat pristine against her throat like armor. "You don't deserve my son," she said, her voice dripping with the kind of venom that comes from years of practice. "Find something from a second-hand store." Behind her, leaning against the hallway wall like this was just another ordinary evening, stood Ethan, my fiancé of 3 years, the man I was supposed to marry in just 18 hours. He'd promised me forever just 6 months ago on a beach in Bora Bora, but now he stood there in silence. I stared at the ruins of my dress, my throat closing. This wasn't just fabric, it was history. This was the same dress my grandmother wore when she married my grandfather after he returned from the Vietnam War. It was the same dress my mother wore in 1992, looking radiant and full of hope. And it was the same dress I'd been altering for months, making it perfect for our special day. "Eleanor," Ethan finally said, his voice weak and uncertain. "That was her grandmother's dress." "Was," she emphasized, stepping delicately over a piece of silk. "Now it's trash, just like this engagement should have been from the beginning." That's when something inside me shifted. Not broke, but shifted. Like a gear clicking into place. I'd spent 3 long years walking on eggshells around this woman. 3 years of enduring her passive-aggressive comments about my job as a graphic designer, saying it was cute but not substantial. 3 years of listening to her tell anyone who'd listen that Ethan was settling because I wasn't from the right family, didn't have the right connections, and didn't dress the way she deemed appropriate. I'd bitten my tongue when she insisted on inviting 250 of her high society friends to our wedding while cutting my guest list to a mere 30. I'd forced a smile when she changed our reception venue without even asking me, from the beautiful beachside resort I'd dreamed of to her stuffy country club. I'd even accepted her demand that we use her wedding planner instead of the one I'd hired and paid for. But this? This was war. "Get out," I said quietly. Eleanor's eyebrows rose in mock surprise. "Excuse me? Get out of my apartment." "Now," I repeated, my voice stronger this time. She laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "Your apartment? Darling, Ethan pays the rent here. Technically, this is Thompson family property." I looked at Ethan, waiting for him to correct her. Waiting for him to remind his mother that both our names were on the lease, that I paid half of everything, and that this was our home. But he just looked at his shoes. That's when I knew I wasn't just losing a dress that night, I was losing everything I thought I knew about the man I was going to marry. "You're right," I said, walking to my closet. "This may be Thompson property, but these clothes, these are mine." I pulled out a suitcase and started packing. Not the honeymoon clothes I'd carefully chosen for a romantic getaway, those could burn with everything else. I packed only the essentials, my laptop, my portfolio, my birth certificate, and my passport. The things that mattered. "What are you doing?" Ethan asked, finally finding his voice. "Leaving," I replied simply. "You can't leave. The wedding is tomorrow. The church, the caterers, the flowers. The wedding you never really wanted me to have," I said as I folded my favorite sweater. "The wedding your mother planned in her venue, with her guest list, and apparently didn't want me wearing that dress in the first place." Eleanor's smile was triumphant. Finally showing your true colors, aren't you? Running when things get difficult. Ethan deserves better. I zipped up the suitcase and turned to face them both. Ethan looked panicked now, like he was finally realizing what was happening. Eleanor looked victorious, like she'd won some game I didn't even know we were playing. You're absolutely right, I told her. Ethan does deserve better. He deserves a mother who doesn't destroy priceless family heirlooms out of spite. He deserves a partner who won't stand by and watch it happen. He deserves honesty, courage, and loyalty. I walked past them both, suitcase in hand. Unfortunately, he's not going to get any of that from either of us. Ethan, wait, Ethan called as I reached the front door. We can fix this. I'll buy you a new dress. We can postpone. There is no we anymore, Ethan. There probably never was, I said, and then I left them standing in the hallway of what used to be our home. I drove straight to my best friend Olivia's apartment. She took one look at my face and opened a bottle of wine without asking any questions. So, she said after I'd told her everything. What's the plan? Plan? I asked, a bit dazed. Diane, I've known you since freshman year. You don't just walk away. You plot. You strategize. You come back swinging. So, what's the plan? She was right. I'd never been one to just take hits and disappear. When our college newspaper tried to bury my investigation into a local charity's embezzlement cases, I'd taken it to the national paper and won a journalism award. When my first boss tried to steal credit for my designs, I'd quietly gathered evidence and gotten him fired. I was not a victim, I was a survivor who was very good at playing the long game. I need to know everything about the Thompson family finances, I said. Olivia raised an eyebrow. Why? Because people like Eleanor, they only respect one thing, power. And I'm going to show her exactly what happens when you underestimate someone who has nothing left to lose. The next morning, while my wedding was supposed to be taking place, I was sitting in a coffee shop across from Ethan's younger brother, Leo. Unlike the rest of the Thompson family, Leo had always been kind to me. He was also a financial analyst with access to information that could be very useful. I can't believe she destroyed your grandmother's dress, he said, shaking his head. And Ethan just stood there? That's not why I asked you here, Leo, I said. He studied my face. What do you need? I need to know about the Thompson Construction Company. All of it. Leo's expression grew serious. Diane, that's. Your family destroyed something irreplaceable that belonged to my family. I'm not asking you to do anything illegal. I'm asking you to help me understand what I'm dealing with. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, they're in trouble. Big trouble. The Ridgewood project, those luxury townhouses, they've been cutting corners on materials, bribing inspectors. If the city finds out, they'd lose their construction license, among other things. There'd be lawsuits, investigations. The company would be finished. I sipped my coffee, my mind racing. Who knows about this? Just the inner circle. Ethan, Dad, Eleanor. She handles the books. And me. And you've been quiet about it because they're my family. Because I didn't know what else to do. He looked miserable. But what they did to you, that was unforgivable. I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. Thank you for being honest with me. That afternoon, I made 2 phone calls. The first was to investigative journalist Ava Reid at the city paper. She owed me a favor from my college days, when I'd helped her break a story about a pharmaceutical company's fake drug trials. The second was to the city building inspector's office. I'd like to report some safety concerns about the Ridgewood luxury development project, I told the inspector. I have reason to believe the plumbing work doesn't meet code standards. By Tuesday, Ava's story was on the front page, local construction giant under investigation for safety violations. By Wednesday, the Thompson Construction Company had been suspended from all city projects pending a full audit. By Friday, Ethan was calling me. "Diane, please. We need to talk." I met him at the same coffee shop where I'd spoken to Leo. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "Good. The business is ruined," he said without preamble. "We're looking at bankruptcy, possible criminal charges. My father's talking about losing the house." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, but there was no real pity in my voice. "You did this," he said. "It wasn't a question. Your mother destroyed something that belonged to my family. I destroyed something that belonged to yours. We're even. Diane, people's livelihoods are at stake. My father built that company from nothing. Your father built that company on corruption and shortcuts that could have gotten people killed. I just made sure the truth came out before someone got hurt." Ethan leaned back in his chair, studying me like he was seeing me for the first time. "I don't know you at all, do I?" "No," I said. "You know the version of me that was trying to make your family happy. The version that stayed quiet when your mother insulted my job, my family, my clothes. The version that let her take over our wedding because keeping peace was more important than having a voice. And this is the real me, the version that exists when someone pushes too far." He was quiet for a long moment. "Is there any way to fix this? Any way to fix us?" I thought about that night, about him standing in the hallway while his mother destroyed something precious to me, about 3 years of choosing his family's comfort over my dignity. "Where were you, Ethan?" "What?" "That night. Where were you when your mother was in our bedroom with scissors, shredding my dress?" He looked uncomfortable. "I was in the living room. I heard sounds. But I thought you two were just talking." "Talking?" I didn't know what she was doing until it was too late. "No," I said, standing up. "You didn't want to know. There's a difference." I left him sitting there, and this time when I walked away, I felt lighter than I had in years. 6 months later, Olivia and I opened our own design agency. Our first major client? The city's newest luxury development company, the one that won the contracts the Thompson Construction Company lost. Ironic how these things work out. Ethan tried to reach out a few more times, but I never responded. Last I heard, he'd moved back in with Eleanor and his father, helping them manage what was left of their assets after the bankruptcy and legal settlements. Eleanor never apologized for the dress. But she did send me something, a newspaper clipping of the engagement announcement between Ethan and some socialite whose father owned a chain of restaurants. The accompanying note read, "He found someone more suitable." I framed it and hung it in my office, not out of bitterness, but as a reminder. A reminder that sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction. It's building something so beautiful and successful that your enemy's attempts to diminish you become irrelevant. My grandmother's dress was gone forever, but the woman who wore it, the one who overcame so much in her life, her legacy lived on. And every morning when I walked into the office of the company I'd built from nothing, wearing clothes I'd chosen, making decisions that mattered, I could feel her smiling. Eleanor Thompson had wanted to cut me down to size. Instead, she'd cut me free.